What's up, guys? Nuance Bro checking in, and today we're going to be talking about a story that I covered in my previous video about the Jasmine Barnes shooting and the coverage, specifically with TYT. Now, I didn't want to make this video, but the reason we're following up is because TYT has finally responded. Now, in the original video I did, and I'm going to leave an info card up above for those who haven't seen the video, but in the original video that I did, I covered one of their videos by Francis Maxwell. I didn't cover the other two that they did, but we will be covering those in this video. But first, let's get to their response to this whole situation.
So now, as to the alleged Shaun King agenda, some people say, well, look, Shaun doesn't look into every murder in the country. He only looks into these cases where it looks like a white racist might have shot an African American. Yeah, that's right. It's not his job to be the cop for the whole country. Nobody elected him to do that. It's like saying, oh, I guess you only care about the Klan murders of black people, but you don't care about other murders. No, I care about other murders, but yeah, I'm gonna chase down the Klan murders. That's my agenda. And if you lived back then, that would have been a great agenda. I wish everybody had that agenda back then.
So one of the points that I raised in the previous video is how they only pick these cases because the shooter is white and it's against a black person. So there's that racial tension there. They don't actually care about black lives because they don't cover other black shootings or the black on black type stuff. And he's saying, well, it's okay because the agenda is against racism. Well, okay, I would say that's okay, but the problem is there was no evidence of racism in this case. You had a white guy killing a black person. So you're not really picking the story based on racism. You're picking the story based on tribalism. It's, oh, well, if a white person kills a black person, then there you go. That's all you need to know. It's not actually based on a white Klan murder. There was no evidence there was any Klan involvement. There was no evidence of any racism whatsoever. It was strictly because it was white on black. Now, when it's black on white, even though there might be racism involved, even in fact, when racism is proven and shown to be involved, well, then it just seems like they don't care about those cases. And, people like Shaun King don't care about those cases. And they have every right to not care about those cases, but at least be more honest and transparent with your audience that you don't care about those cases, that you're only going to focus on, you only focus and you only care about the white on black, murders.
Okay, I mean, we can play that game when it comes to anything. For all the idiots out there who pretend like they care about the Armenian genocide, right, which we've talked about on the show on a regular basis and have acknowledged it on a regular basis.
Oh boy, she's gonna bring up the old Armenian genocide. By the way, if you haven't seen my video on that, info card up above.
You guys care about the genocide of the Rohingya Muslims? Have you guys been going off on that?
Why, yes, Anna, I have.
You care about what's happening to the Yemeni children right now? The tens of thousands of them who have already died and the millions of them who could lose their lives in coming months because of the famine there? Do they care about that?
Why, yes, Anna, I do. In fact, I even made a video about it where I talked about Saudi Arabia and all the horrible things they did in their war in Yemen currently, and how they're buying all these weapons from us in the US and how we should actually stop US weapons sales to them. But go on.
No, they don't. So,
and unlike Shaun.
Oh, well, okay. So I appreciate that whataboutist, red herring argument she decided to bring up, which has nothing to do with why they were wrong in their coverage here. But even though, I actually do talk about these things and I have covered it and I am against those things that she mentioned and I've been pretty, public about that, she decides to bring that up as if that's some sort of like, oh, well, got you there, buddy.
You do not stick to the truth.
Exactly.
And you don't care about justice. It's just a political trick or a game for you guys.
Now, this is absolutely rich. The person who was being political and making the case of this 7-year-old girl who was murdered and making that case political when there was no evidence of racism, but he decides to bring racism and things like that into it, he was the one politicizing it. But then when people criticize him for politicizing it, he turns around and calls them out for being political. It's absolutely amazing. It literally reminds me of when Piers Morgan was talking about how, Ben Shapiro is a bully or whatever, or something like that. And then Ben Shapiro literally turned the tables on him and being like, dude, you've been bullying everyone coming on your show, including me, this whole time. And then when I call you a bully, you say I'm bullying you for saying that. It's amazing.
That's what I call bullying.
And this is astonishing.
What's astonishing
What's astonishing about it is that for weeks now, you have been saying that anybody who disagrees with your position is absurd, idiotic, and doesn't care about the dead kids in Sandy Hook. And then when I say that that's a bully tactic, you turn around and say, I'm bullying you for saying that. It's absurd. It's ridiculous.
Sean instead found the real culprit and helped to bring out justice, which is the whole point, okay?
I agree, that is the whole point. And that's actually why I praised Sean King in my video. I said he actually should get a lot of credit for that. The only issue I really took with him is, just basically his reasons for getting involved in these cases in the first place, because he is kind of motivated by, his own kind of racism, and he's kind of I'm just personally not a fan of that. But I did give him all the credit in the world. That he absolutely deserves credit for that.
And now to our coverage. So some are saying, well, you guys reported that it was a white guy. Yeah, that's because 4 witnesses in the family reported that it was a white guy. And we had questions as to why he might have done that. And we speculated on that a little bit at the time, but mainly said on the video, hey guys, we don't know why this happened, right?
Speculated a little bit. Now, I don't know if you guys could see, but if you go back and watch his face a little bit, even when he says that, it doesn't seem like he even believes what he's saying. He knows he didn't speculate a little bit. The Young Turks went overboard with the amount of speculation that they did. It was pretty ridiculous. And we're going to get into some of those clips right now. So let's go back to the clip that the Young Turks originally put out. This clip actually involving Cenk Uygur, and we're going to get to another clip later on that's even juicier. But let's check out this clip with Cenk Uygur back when they were first talking about this story before they took down all their videos. So let's go take a look.
And so this is terrorism, and we don't know why he did it, but it's not related to anything else.
So right out of the gates, calling it terrorism, no evidence whatsoever, no evidence of racism or anything. All they have is people saying there's a white suspect who was in a car in a red truck, and that turned out to be false. But all they had was basically the race of the person, and from that you call it terrorism?
Look. You know what we're all thinking. Why did he do it? No. And only one possible reason pops up, but it could be something else. But right now, the only thing that separates him and her is the race.
So he's saying, well, it could be something else. It could, but the only thing that's separating them is the race. What kind of argument is that? So anytime where you don't know motive, but the races are different, you automatically assume racism? Does that work in reverse if a black person kills a white person and maybe you haven't found? Well, first of all, you don't even know. It's just people saw maybe someone fleeing the scene and they identified it, let's say, as a black person, and they have you don't know what the motivation is. You don't know if it's a robbery. You don't know anything. It's the beginning of an investigation, and you're just going to automatically assume racism? That's kind of ridiculous.
And so, but maybe it's not that. Maybe it's something else. But whatever it is, it's what I referred to earlier. Of all people, Chelsea Manning taught me this phrase recently: stochastic terrorism. It's when people are encouraged by leaders to do violent acts. The leader doesn't say kill this specific person, doesn't say you should target Jasmine Barnes. It just encourages you to hate a certain group of people. And then random, unbalanced people in the country pop up and do the violence on their behalf. And that's called stochastic terrorism. And that's what this one looks like.
So he goes on again to say, well, it could be something else, but whatever it is, and then he says what it is, or what he thinks it is, and he kind of just states that it's stochastic terrorism, a term he learned from Chelsea Manning. And this term, he basically says, well, when the leaders basically say stuff, it basically kind of inspires violence, and people, carry out violence on that leader's behalf or because of what the leader said. And what leader do you think he's talking about? He didn't say a specific leader by name or anything, but we all know he's talking about Trump without a doubt. And there's no evidence. You have a drawing of a white person, and there's no evidence that this person actually did it. And there's no evidence of any sort of motivation whatsoever. And you're saying it's terrorism, stochastic terrorism, and you're saying basically Trump kind of inspired this person without any evidence. You call that a little speculation? Now, if you think that was bad, well, you haven't seen anything yet, because this next clip is from another TYT employee, Hassan Piker, and he's actually Cenk Uygur's nephew. So
Yep, Jake gave me a fucking job, dude. And you know what? It sure is good. Love that nepotism. No. Maybe you should get some of that.
This is 7-year-old Jasmine Barnes. She was in a car with her mother and 3 sisters when an unknown bearded white male in his 40s wearing a red sweater pulled up in a red pickup truck and opened fire at the car she was in. Jasmine died.
Did I cut this man off? Did I do anything wrong to cause this man to fire shots in my car? And I did it.
Says a lot about our culture when a person randomly decides to gun you down and your first instinct is to blame yourself. But as LaPortia Washington pointed out, she did nothing wrong. And with no answers as to why this may have happened, the police have not ruled out the possibility that this could be a racially motivated hate crime. So let's talk about that for a second.
Why should we talk about that for a second? Because the police said that they weren't ruling out something? If someone asks the police, hey, have you guys ruled out this possibility? Well, no, it's the beginning of an investigation. We haven't even found who's responsible. We don't know who's responsible. So no, we're not ruling it out. That doesn't mean that there's evidence for that thing that they're not ruling it out. It means they don't have evidence to rule it out. And because of that, it would be irresponsible to talk about things that they haven't ruled out just because they haven't ruled it out. That's ridiculous.
According to recently released FBI crime statistics, 2018 witnessed a 17% increase in reported hate crimes over the previous year, making this the 3rd consecutive year where hate crimes have increased. And nearly 3 out of 5 of the 7,100 hate crimes reported last year were motivated by race and ethnicity, with black people accounting for almost half of the hate crime victims.
So he's going into hate crime stats on a video about a 7-year-old girl who was murdered, where there's no evidence of anything racially motivated or hate crime related whatsoever. No evidence. Zero. Now let's see what else he says.
Okay, I won't talk about the criminal justice system or voter ID laws, but let's consider the fact that a bipartisan anti-lynching bill was introduced in the Senate this year. An anti-lynching bill in 2018?
Remember, this is a video about a 7-year-old girl who was murdered, and he's talking about lynching bills. Lynching bills, it has nothing to do with the case. This is insane. What are you talking about? And also this argument that they felt that they had to pass a lynching bill, and senators proposed an anti-lynching bill. So you have politically motivated senators who want to pass some sort of, lynching. So what? They can propose anything that's crazy. Is there evidence for this huge epidemic of people being lynched, racially lynched in 2018? No.
What's next? Anti-slave?
He didn't just bring up slavery, did he? He just brought up, I feel like I'm repeating myself a lot, but he just brought up slavery in a video that's supposed to be about the murder of a 7-year-old girl, where they have no motivation. There's no evidence of racism, no evidence of a hate crime whatsoever. All you have is that you think the suspect might be white. That's it. Now, when I saw this video, I actually reached out to Hassan on Twitter, and we had a little bit of an exchange, so I'm going to read you some of the responses. Great vid, Hassan the Hun, where you barely talked about the girl who was murdered, but instead decided to use her death as a way to score racially divisive political points. Why take the video down? You should stand behind your work. P.S. Publish our Twitch stream. By the way, that last part, for those who don't know, he did a Twitch stream about me, but he decided not to publish it, I guess. So I was just telling him, publish that Twitch stream, let people see. So much nuance, yet fails to understand how news organizations work off the facts the institutions give them, like eyewitness testimony and police press conferences. I added an update on my same day coverage, you absolute moron. The vids were taken down in order not to misinform. Now, I gotta admit, I was being a little cheeky when I said, why take the video down? You should stand behind your work. Obviously, that was sarcastic because nobody would stand behind that because it was such garbage. But you'll see he tries to justify his actions. Yeah, except you weren't just reporting the facts. You decided to make it about racism when you already had no clue. You can't even admit when you f***ed up and maybe engaged in a little bit of introspection. Did you watch the video where I mentioned that the police had not ruled out the possibility that this was a hate crime? Do you actually read/watch the videos before leeching? Yeah, they don't rule anything out without evidence, you dummy. Doesn't mean there is evidence. You don't make a video about racism based on what they don't rule out in the beginning of an investigation. Are you incapable of ever admitting fault? Holy shit, man. And then he says, sorry for making a video about the murder of a 7-year-old to spread the word about her manhunt when the police admitted to needing help. And also sharing her family's GoFundMe. Some people get super triggered I brought up actual hate crime stats since the police said this could be one. Dude, you don't go around talking about the history of lynching when a 7-year-old girl died and there was zero evidence of racism. Do you think it's justified when right-wingers do that when they hear about an act of violence like a bombing and start blaming Islam without evidence? 1, right-wingers do that. 2, literally every outlet covered this story because it was the information the police released to spread awareness of an ongoing manhunt. 3, why do facts about systemic racism bother you so much? Does it exist? Yes or no? 1, that's what I said. So behavior you despise is justified when you do it? 2, covering is fine. Problem is the way you covered it. You interjected race and lynching when it had nothing to do with it. 3, bothers me when you hijack her death because you care more about your political agenda than her life. Now, after this exchange on Twitter, Hassan decided to get on a Twitch stream with his gamer friend Destiny, who also comments on political issues and is also on the left. And they had an interesting exchange.
Okay, here's the question for you. Trainwrex is asking about getting Nuance Bro on the podcast so that you and I can dunk on him. And I told him
he's so boring. I hate people like that. It makes me want to end myself. It's like,
yeah, well, he did an entire video on. Are you familiar with what happened with Jasmine Barnes, like the 7-year-old girl that got shot and killed in Houston?
No.
So they start off the stream by expressing their mutual dislike of me, and then Hassan decides to tell Destiny about how he covered the situation in his own words. So it's kind of a long explanation, but I'm going to get towards the end of it, and then you can see his friend's Destiny's reaction because it's actually quite hilarious.
As a news organization, what do you want us to do? Like, we have to work off of the information that, like.
I would. So I understand where you're going with this, but I'm probably not gonna side with you here. I would say that talking about it being a hate crime would be pretty proud. That's even like.
I didn't say no. I know, but I didn't say it was a hate crime. I said the police officers have not ruled out the likelihood that it is.
Yeah, sure, but I mean that would be like if there was like a bombing somewhere, and like the police officers haven't ruled out that it's Muslim terrorism.
Yeah,
right?
So that's exactly what he said.
Oh man, that's amazing. So his friend Destiny literally makes the same exact argument I made to him over Twitter. And then Hassan literally says, oh, that's the same argument he made. That's the same argument he made. It's classic. So it's not just me being a hater of Hassan. His own friends, people who love him and care about him, they're telling him the same thing I am. So let's see how this goes.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Like if it was.
Listen. Okay, here's what happened. A news story broke, and you said, "Hey, this news story broke. There could be this narrative. Let's talk about things related to this narrative." Now, I'm not saying that it is this narrative, but we're gonna talk. I'm never going to agree with that. There's no argument you can ever give me that's ever going to sway me to say, like, "Oh yeah, I totally understand that." I would just never do it. That's just my stance on it.
I just don't know how I would ever be able to do my job if I can't trust the information that I'm getting from vetted sources. You know what I mean?
No one is talking about the information. We're talking about the narrative.
No,
Why do you keep talking about the information? Your information was correct. The information is fine. The narrative is not supported by the information. No one cares about the information. It's the narrative you're crafting.
But the narrative is backed by the information.
No, it's not.
That's being presented.
And I actually think Destiny puts it pretty perfectly there. It's really not about how they were, reporting on the information that was given to them. It was the narrative that they were crafting after that. So if you just said, this girl was killed and this is the suspect, let's put this picture out there and help bring this suspect to justice or, help find out more information about this suspect, that would be fine. But when you jump from that, when there's no evidence of racism, no evidence of a hate crime whatsoever, you just see that the suspect is white and you start making videos about lynching history, like that's just crazy. And I'm glad Destiny, called his friend out on that. And the hope is that Hassan would learn from that and he would grow and be like, you know what, maybe we won't do this again. Maybe I did actually genuinely screw up. Maybe we'll just report the facts and we won't, engage in this kind of hyper speculative. Not just it goes beyond speculation. I mean, you're talking about. The lynching, it just blows my mind, the whole lynching narrative.
Sometimes the news, hold on, I hope you're sitting. Sometimes the news develops and a story that you thought was going in one direction goes in a different direction. You report on the first day, you reported also on the second day. Oh my God.
So now we get back to the response video that they did to this whole controversy, and Cenk is saying like, oh, well, the news develops, wow. Like I just said earlier, it's not about that you talked about, oh, well, this is the suspect that the police put out and, go look for this person. It's not about that. It's the narrative you developed about that whole situation. This, you called it terrorism, stochastic terrorism, or whatever that term was, and then talking about the lynching and all that stuff. That's the irresponsible bit. That's the part that most people are actually angry with you about. But you want to ignore that. And it's not just people like me. It's actually people who genuinely like your show and they like you and they're telling you this, and you just want to write them off. And then Cenk Uygur, he goes on to talk about they just get so off base with this stuff. Just take a look.
And what the right wing does all the time is projection. They think like, well, we were terrible to minorities when we were in the majority. So if African Americans, Latinos, et cetera, become the majority in this country, oh my God, what are they going to do to us? They're going to lock us up in FEMA camps.
There's no words. There really isn't. Anyways, Anna decides to finish off the video with her very nuanced take on this whole issue.
Oh, so you said that it was a white guy. What happened? I was on vacation. That's what happened. I haven't commented on the story yet. They're not watching this. They don't care what the facts are. They don't care whether we're fair. They don't care about any of it, which is why I hate addressing them. They're hateful, bigoted losers. So let's move on and cover the news that matters.
Yeah, that seems like a very reasonable, rational response to this whole situation. You guys did nothing wrong. Everybody else responding to you, criticizing you, they must be the bad guys. They must be super racist and bigoted people, and you guys are just these innocent actors who got caught in this, just this mountain of hate. Yeah, the information didn't turn out the way it was. I mean, we can't be responsible for that, and no one's saying you're bad people for that. It's the narrative, and you guys just can't even take that criticism. You can't take 2 seconds to just engage in a little introspection and realize that, you know what, maybe we did do what those people we criticize all the time, those, the right wingers who, whenever there's like a bombing or something, they'll be like, oh, well, someone shouted Allahu Akbar and, it must be a Muslim and let's blame all Muslims or whatever. And like go into this, let's talk about the history of Islamic terrorism. Like, what if people did that? I'm pretty sure you guys would criticize them, especially if the facts didn't turn out the way, that they were first reporting. So why don't you guys just take your own advice for once and just stop calling everyone you disagree with racists and bigots. It's just so elementary. It's so childish. Anyways, that's the end of the video, guys. What did you guys think? I didn't want to make this follow-up video, but I just felt like they forced my hand. And if you guys saw, I did a bit of a accidental live stream a little bit ago where I said that same line. So yeah, that's the end of the video, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Social media links are in the description box below, as well as merch. And I'll see you next time, bro.